My name is Jordan. I'm a CPA and former auditor, and I'm one of the audit project managers here at Supervizor. Today, I'm going to share with you a brief demo of our platform that will give you just a small glimpse into how Supervizor works and what it can do for your team. We will start here in the global view, which is the main user interface of Supervizor. Here is where you have all of your checks that are run on a continuous basis. Each line that you see here represents one check. If I open the filter menu, I can filter to focus on specific controls or checks. For example, I can filter by the tags to focus on a specific control module. Let's say procure to pay or P2P. I can also filter based on words or expressions. For example, let's look for duplicate purchases. Now I can see that there are two controls with duplicate purchases in the label that were run within the P2P module. Let's take a look at these together. If I hover over this first control, I can see the description, which tells me that the criteria evaluated to determine a duplicate are the external reference number, the amount, the document date, and the subledger account of the invoices. For this control, a flagged result means that each one of these criteria was identical between the two invoices. And in this case, I can see that there are two instances of this which were identified by the control, worth a combined total amount of $159,707. The supervision status in progress tells me that the investigation has already been started by another user for one of these two results. A supervisor's assignment feature, seen here, allows for the assignment of the controls to the relevant user or users. It enables this collaboration between teams or lines of defense. As another user assigned to this control, I can go ahead and complete the investigation now. To do so, I will double-click on the control, which will load the list of the two findings. Each line that you see here represents one finding. In this status column, I can see that the first result has a status of corrected, which tells me that this is the one that has already been investigated. The second result has the default status of to be investigated, so I know that this is the result that I still need to conduct the investigation on. To do so, I can click on the result, and this will load the lines of source data directly below, which gives me the detailed information of the entries that make up the finding. Here I can see that there were, in fact, two entries, which are both for the same $53,000 amount for a purchase from Costco on 10/28. However, when I look at the external references, I notice that they don't seem to be identical on first glance, and that's because of the special characters that you see here, namely a slash and a period. While most ERP systems have built-in restrictions that would block the input of identical invoice numbers, the addition of these types of special characters would allow this type of duplicate to bypass your system restriction. Here, thanks to the automatic data cleansing, Supervizor was able to clean these invoice references of the special characters in order to recognize that these are in fact identical reference numbers, which prevented this type of case from slipping through the cracks undetected. And another way that Supervizor prevents things from slipping through the cracks is with its embedded accounting knowledge and the pattern recognition technology, which enables Supervizor to identify your transactions based on the pattern of debits and credits and to which GL accounts. In this finding, for example, you may notice that one of the entries was not recorded on an AP journal code. Instead, it was on a miscellaneous journal. However, Supervizor identified that the entry contained a debit to an expense account and a credit to a supplier payable, which allowed it to recognize that this is in fact a purchase invoice entry, despite the fact that it was not recorded on an AP journal. And lastly, thanks to Supervisor's clearing algorithm, it takes into account whether the invoices have been cleared by linking them to a payment. So to investigate this finding, I can add comments or attachments as supporting documentation, and then I can update the status. For example, we will mark this as to be corrected. Now, when I go back to the global view, I can see that the review status has been updated from in progress to investigated, reflecting that all results of the control have now been investigated, meaning that the control is ready to be reviewed, which is the process of validating the investigation. For the user responsible for this oversight function, they can click on the control, open the results, and again, review the investigations and supporting documentation by clicking on each result. And then they will update the review status. I will go ahead and use this option to update both statuses at once and mark them as reviewed. This will lock the controls from further workflow. Now, when I go back to the global view, I can see that the status has updated to reviewed, reflecting that all results have been validated and indicating the completion of the workflow for this control. The process is the same for all controls. We can take a look at this second one together, for example. As this is also a duplicate purchase invoice control, it uses the same logic as the one we just looked at. But here, I can see that the criteria that must be identical does not include the invoice reference number. So this is similar to a fuzzy duplicate type check. So it makes sense that there are much more results in this control. For example, 56 findings in this case. I can also see that the workflow is not started, which tells me that all 56 results still need to be investigated. However, I will use Supervisor's priority feature to cut through the noise and help me focus on investigating only the highest risk findings first. Now that I've opened the control, you can see the priority column here on the far left. This is where each result is given a risk ranking from 0 to 4 or low to high risk that is based on a set of criteria specific to each control. In this case, I can see this criteria includes reference numbers with higher degrees of similarity or non-consecutive numbers, for example. If I filter on the priority, let's say I focus on just the two highest priorities, 3 and 4. I can see that the number of results has dropped significantly. And if I focus on just priority 4, I have just one result left to investigate. Again, I can click on the result to load the source data where I can review the detailed information. Here, I notice that the reference numbers do differ, but only by one character, an 8 versus a B, which is a common scanning error. Again, I can change the status to document my investigation. Let's mark it again as to be corrected. Now, when I go back to the global view, I will see that the status is updated to in progress to track my changes. In addition to tracking this in the global view, Supervisor also tracks your progress through the built-in dynamic dashboards in the global report, which I will show you now. These are Power BI-based dashboards that can be used to track your progress over time and across business units, or to visualize trends and KPIs for internal planning or external reporting, and they can be customized as needed to fit your objectives. Still, everything that you're seeing here only scratches the surface of what Supervisor can do. Schedule your personalized demo today to see the full scope of the platform's capabilities and learn how Supervisor can equip your audit and finance teams with the most comprehensive, accurate, and easy to implement audit analytics.